Has a former world champion re-signed with WWE. An injured WWE star is training for a return, and Joe Hendry is said to be on main roster level money in WWE. Stay tuned for all the wrestling news. Joe Hendry is now fully in WWE. He's reportedly signed a full-time contract with the company. They seemingly have bought out the rest of his TNA deal.
Yeah.
He's a WWE superstar, which means he's making WWE superstar money.
Yeah, so according to a report from Fightful Select, Hendry has signed a main roster level deal with WWE and is earning above the main roster minimum salary of $350,000 a year. However, it's actually unknown what Hendry's exact salary is. But I mean,
$350,000 minimum.
But
minimum. That's incredible.
Time,
incredible work from Joe.
Incredible work from Joe, but one of the most creative people out there, I feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody kind of sees this one side of Joe right now. But just wait. It's
There's layers.
There's so many layers to
He's
Joe
like
Hendry,
an onion.
and you've only seen one so far. So I think that it's not going to be surprising to me if Joe Hendry's on the main roster before long. It feels like his TNA NXT sort of stint here, the hybrid run, has been all he really needs for an NXT run. You could make him NXT champion, I suppose. That'd be very nice.
You could make him NXT champion, but the man doesn't really need developmental. Like he's been in development.
He's on WrestleMania.
He's been on WrestleMania. He's been in development for so long because of how much work he's done on the independents, how much work he's done in TNA, even Ring of Honor. He had a run in there, so he is ready for that main roster, and it looks like WWE is recognizing that by giving him a main roster level salary, a main roster level contract. We've seen it before with talents coming over from TNA and AEW. Jordan Grace was one of them.
Yep.
Ricky Saints was the other. They're both making a lot of money to be in NXT.
And they're both people who, publicly it's been said, and there's, a lot of sources close to WWE style reports. They're people that the company are incredibly hot on, and it's people who the company see a bright future for with the company.
Yes.
So genuinely, I think before, maybe even the Rumble, I think is when we see Joe Hendry properly pop up. And then I think from there, he just doesn't leave the main roster.
I feel like it is definitely going to be another similar situation to Javon, where he's floating between the two at the moment, and then he goes up. I think you're maybe right after Rumble. He's been on one WrestleMania. Surely he'd want to run it back for another one in Vegas again next year. Just on that, finally, though, the Fightful Select report states that it's not known exactly how much.
Yeah.
So it's all speculatory.
It's all very speculatory.
But the minimum is $350,000 for the main roster.
And the big takeaway is that, he is on main roster level deal, apparently. So, that means there's a very bright future in the eyes of WWE there.
It's crazy thinking back to the time where you used to work.
I've been in cars with Joe Hendry listening to Phil Collins at 2 a.m. driving back from Milton Keynes.
Trying to afford a meal deal. Now he can afford lots of meal deals. He can get everyone a meal deal.
Honestly, nobody I've ever met deserves this more. He is one of the hardest working people, and it proper makes me really proud of him.
Absolutely. Well, he was on NXT Gold Rush at Madison Square Garden, the theater at Madison Square Garden last night, and there was a title change, but not for Joe Hendry's match, for the Women's Championship. It was Jacy Jayne versus Tatum Paxley. Tatum Paxley's just won the title about a month ago, and she's defending it against Jacy Jayne. Unfortunately, she loses it, ending her reign at 24 days. Now, this win came after Izzy Damon, the Culling, turned on Tatum Paxley, attacked her at ringside, threw her back in the ring, basically for Jacy Jayne to hit her finish and pin the champion. We've got a new two-time women's champion in NXT.
Now I can already hear people being like, "You buried her," but I mean, look at this. It's a major storyline development. She's held the title already. This is something that really that teeth can be sank into creatively. And I think once you're free of the culling and once you're free of all that, then all we got's Tatum. Right, and we've got Tatum on a massive push to get that back. I feel
like Tatum is someone who is actually quite ready for the main roster, but also I would make this argument anyway. But she's ready for the main roster, but Jacy Jayne is also ready for the main roster. So her winning the title feels like a step back, because it was like, okay, maybe Jacy Jayne losing it to Tatum Paxley is to allow her to be elevated and Tatum to take that spot and take the torch for a little bit, but both of them have now just gone back to where they were.
It's almost like there's a bit of a traffic jam just at the traffic lights, waiting for them to go green, which is the big pass through to the main roster.
A little bit, and I feel like the thing that will finally turn those lights green as the Royal Rumble in a few months' time. And it feels like that's maybe the way they're going with things and when they'll start calling people up.
Look, we've seen less of a focus on bringing back old names, more of a focus on bringing in younger names and like more exciting or dynamic performers.
Yes.
And obviously, you still have those huge moments where like a name from an era gone by pops back up and everybody remembers it fondly. And it's like a huge moment for the crowd. But I think when you look at creative and the creative you can get out of the Rumble, if you use the Rumble correctly.
It's used correctly, yeah.
That's it. If you use the Rumble correctly, you can introduce these people that maybe, people who aren't watching NXT are going to start to fawn over.
I think the biggest...
It's kind of like a glimpse into the future for people that just watch main roster.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I think the biggest point on that was the Jordan Grace appearance when she was still with TNA. The Jordan Grace appearance in the Rumble 2 years ago, that got an amazing reaction. And it just shows that when she joined the NXT women's division, the depth of that roster. It's something that the CW network has actually pinpointed about NXT. Obviously, the network that NXT is on. The president of that, Brad Schwartz, has praised the NXT women's division specifically and feels like it's stronger than the men's division. He said to Sports Business Journal, "I think the women of NXT are better than the men. The women's division of NXT is probably the strongest in all of WWE wrestling." And you know what?
Echoes what Triple H said about the female talent just getting it quicker and better than the men do.
He's right. Like the depth of that roster and how much Shawn Michaels has pushed them to the forefront of NXT. Like they're on the same level of the men's division, which in past it's not always been the case. And it's the depth of it, as much as when people will leave to go to the main roster, there's still going to be such a strong roster there.
It is this sort of like if it's Chef Michaels, it has felt like it has felt like for a while you would have these sort of pushes, but then they'd have two pans on the go at once. They'd get too distracted, and then one of them starts to burn. And now at least it feels like we do have that cohesiveness between it. So fingers crossed this is something that can just spread.
I mean, when you look at some of the biggest names in NXT at the moment, you've got your JC James, you've got your Tatum Paxleys, you've got your Blake Monroe, you've got your Sol Ruka, you've got your Zarias. They're all were featured on last night's NXT Gold Rush, and that's just a few of the names. That's not even thinking about Jordan Grace, etc., etc. There's lots of top names there in NXT, and two top names in NXT are now scheduled to face each other at NXT Deadline in just a couple weeks' time for the NXT Championship.
So, it was announced on last night's Gold Rush that Ricky Saints is going to be defending his NXT Championship against Oba Femi at Deadline. So that's going to be...
it's going to be great.
It's going to be such a good match.
Ricky Saints did manage to beat Oba Femi for the NXT Championship, so he has a win over Oba, and the ruler is not happy about that. So he's come back. We saw him appear at the end of the match between...
They had a scuffle. Like it's all been kind of popping off. There was the beat down backstage with the pipe.
There's a lot going on here, and I feel, again, going back to the NXT Women's Championship, I don't know how to call this, because Ricky is ready for the main roster, similar to Joe Hendry. He's on that main roster money. He's making a decent whack.
Yeah.
Does he need to be in NXT? No. Does Oba need to be in NXT? Not really. He's a megastar waiting to happen like Braun Breaker, so just shoot him up to the main roster. So who leaves the NXT title?
I don't know, but I think that this is the thing is when you're looking at names like this, it's a bit more exciting when it could be anybody, because there's that anticipation that it is going to be a main roster call. It's more exciting when it could be any of the people there. Yeah. But at the same time, it all hinges on creative. It's what they always say. It's at times when in the past, if you listen to podcasts with all the old heads and stuff, it's like, like creative has nothing for you. You've got to go. And it's like, well, then I had to leave and I had to do all this. But if creative's there and it's right and they've got that perfect point of insertion to just drop that person from NXT straight to the main roster, that's what you're looking for, I think, which is why I think we got a bit of a traffic jam. Is we're just sort of waiting for the stars to align on the main roster and then be like,
here we go, pop them in.
Through the curtain.
Both of those guys absolutely ready for the main roster. Both of them will tear the house down at NXT Deadline for that NXT Championship. But someone who has been around the Performance Center recently that is waiting to get back to the main roster is Chad Gable. A report from PW Insider Elite says that Gable's been training for his in-ring return at the Performance Center. Obviously, he's been out injured for the past few months. Strangely disappeared at the same time as a smaller El Grande Americano before he got lifts in his boots.
He is training not to come back and wrestle, but to come back and clear his bloody name.
Clear his name.
To prove that he wasn't. These false accusations that he was El Grande Americano. though. They're two separate performers being paid on two separate contracts, I imagine.
Interesting.
Have you not seen that Americano was actually he was crouching down a bit in his first appearances? Now he's a bit taller and leaner.
Do they share a contract? Does El Grande Americano have a single contract?
Why would they share a contract if they're different people?
Yeah, quite right.
He's got to clear his bloody name.
Well, Chad Gable will hopefully be back on the main roster at some point very soon once he's recovered from his injury, getting those reps in. He's got to get that bump card stamped again soon, in the Performance Center. Recently, though, we saw multiple names return to WWE, but it looks like they're just maybe one-off
passing through,
yeah. Saying hello. The first one, of course, Matt Cardona.
Yeah, so Matt Cardona obviously popped up as part of the Cena final tournament, but it obviously was a massive flash of nostalgia for a lot of us of a certain era.
As soon as that
I imagine for you more so as well.
Oh my God. True Long Island IC. Yeah. Come on,
everybody was immediately like, oh my God, he's back. It's Zack Ryder. Why isn't he Matt Cardona? What's going on here? But despite not being signed to a wrestling contract, Matt Cardona / Zack Ryder has apparently signed a merch deal with WWE. He said on his Major Wrestling Figure podcast, I did sign something to let them do merch temporarily. Could there be a Mattel figure? Could there be a Topps card? It's really up to them. I've given them the rights temporarily.
Yeah, which is interesting that he's given them the rights, obviously, to his likeness. But also they probably own the name Zack Ryder. So they could sell merch at any point. So it's maybe, in my mind, and this is speculative, it's maybe more just an agreement to be like, hey, yeah, we're on good terms. You can sell my merch and I'll take a cut.
One of those trademarks I've not really looked at.
Do you want to try on it?
Where it's I'll just buy it. I'll be Zack Ryder from now on. Where it's like, have they let it lapse? Is it something that he's taken back under an agreement where he's not going to use it to promote himself, or it could, as you said, just be likeness. I've got a feeling that we're going to get an entire set of Mattel figures that comes in a box as long as this table, which is seen as final opponents or whatever. But I think that it would make sense to capitalize on it. We've seen Dolph has a t-shirt out as well, so it's kind of they want to capitalize on nostalgia. Wrestling is fueled by nostalgia, for better or worse. So I think that it makes sense here.
My guess is part
Hopefully
of this
get some good money out of it as well.
For 2K26, we do eventually get a TNA DLC, and people that you would assume would be in there would be the Hardy Boys. You would have probably Joe Hendry, but now he's in WWE, so it wouldn't matter there. But Matt Cardona, so you've got Zack Ryder in there, and probably Ziggler.
Or is the main storyline for 2K26 going to be that your character is going to go into the tournament to face John Cena in the final match, retire him, and become Hulk Hogan 5?
There was a tease on social media just earlier of Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze teasing something for 2K26, so maybe we'll get some information on that soon. But we have been speaking about Dolph Ziggler here also getting a t-shirt. He's clarified, or Fightful Select I should say, has clarified that similar to Matt Cardona, Dolph Ziggler is not signed to a WWE contract according to WWE sources. He's still firmly in TNA. It was a one-off appearance during the tournament.
He comes out and he comes out and he already said, he shouts out TNA on that entrance. So it was one of those that wasn't really that surprising for me. The interesting thing that I sometimes think about is if you're a wrestler the level of Ziggler, where he's done pretty much everything. Right?
Oh, he's done everything.
So it's would you even sign a contract to come back if you've already done everything? Is it not more fun to be out there doing the other stuff?
There is one
Obviously,
word.
Financial. Yeah.
Money. It's money. It always comes down to money.
Hopefully, with these deals and if Dolph has signed something similar to what Matt Cardona is saying, hopefully they just make some bank out of it.
Fingers crossed.
They've done enough to deserve it.
Yeah. Anyway, that is all we've got time for just now. I've been Fraser. This has been Zack Ryder. You need to buy the trademark, and we will see you later on.